Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Choose the Challenge. I am LaWanna Bradford with the Bradford Group as well as Bradford Group Consulting, also known as the Connector, where I help you and your business connect and navigate through life in its ever-changing ebbs and flows so that you can identify what you first thought were stumbling blocks as stepping stones. I help to ensure that you are connected with the resources that you need in order to expand, grow, and make the impact, influence, and income that you ultimately want in life and business. And I love hosting Choose the Challenge. Well, today I have a very special guest coming at us all the way from Australia, Wendy Corner, and we are going to talk about words. We'll get into the title a little bit. But why is this so important? We often hear that thoughts become things, words become action, action becomes habit, habits become destiny, on and on and on. And we tend to get comfortable in repeating these sayings over and over and over again. But what do they really mean? And can they, in fact, really shape our lives? Can it really influence how we show up, how we respond to life? Can our life be made even more delicious when we sit in the power of our words? And that is what Wendy Corner and I are going to be talking about on this Choose to Challenge episode. To those of you that are joining Choose to Challenge, it's designed to expand your thinking. Get rid of those biases, those stereotypes, those norms, those systems, those institutions that are keeping us shackled, for lack of a better word, into a framework that doesn't allow us to live expansively as we were divinely created to be. So before we get started and I bring Wendy, I want to salute our sponsor for this show, which is Celebrate You Women Embracing Wellness.
I've been searching for a gold mine, been digging for a long time, looking for a diamond of the rarest kind. Then one day I found a perfect treasure, a worth of impossible measure. I started to pray, then I heard you say you would forever be mine. I struck love, now that I have found you, I struck love.
Hello, hello, Wendy. Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad that we were able to sync our calendars. I mean, with this massive time difference, it can be a little challenging, yes?
It can indeed, it can.
Well, welcome to Choose the Challenge. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about, can you really shift your experience with words? And Wendy, for those of you that do not know who you are, I just want to share with our audience a little bit about some amazing work that you're doing. You are the CEO of Your Words Have Power, and Wendy is on a mission to help individuals as well as speakers rise in the power of their words, to showcase themselves in a way on stage so that they can help influence lives through their messages of inspiration, hope, education, and encouragement. We all need a good word from time to time, yes. And it's about crafting that in a way that it's artful expression. She is on a mission to help speakers step across the stages of the world in their authenticity and in their truth to, again, change lives one word at a time. And I want to turn it over to you, Wendy, just to tell the audience a little bit more about you and why is the message of your words having power so important to you?
Words carry an energy. And for me, that's critical, because there's the word, the energy from so many different levels. I mean, from an acoustic perspective, there are some sounds which literally resonate bigger in the vocal tract. Married to that, the energy of the intention behind it, and suddenly the whole thing becomes bigger than you might see in terms of a word on the page. That's the general sound of it, and that frequency impacts literally all the way your cells in your body function, because it all works on vibration, on frequency. So words really do have an incredible power, not only outwardly to the person that you're speaking to, but also to you as well, the speaker, the thinker. So that's why I get really passionate about words.
I love that. Let's unpackage it for someone who may be even hearing some of this terminology for the first time, as far as vibration and frequency. So if I'm new to this type of communication, what is that saying to me, and how can I be more aware? And what I want to preface this by, Wendy, is we know that words only make up a certain component of communication, but yet the spoken word literally shapes life.
Indeed.
Right?
The spoken word, indeed, because what the words themselves, I mean, I think you may be alluding to, there was a study back in the 70s by a guy called Moravian, who stated that 7% of words, 7% of communication is conveyed with the words, 38% vocally, and 55% visually. If that's the study I think you might be referring back to.
Yes.
Moravia was at pains to say that specifically was around conveying emotion, not communication in general. And if you check out his website, there's a big banner over saying, please do not quote these exact stats unless you are talking around emotion. Having said that.
Thank you. That is very important. You just educated me, because you hear it, you don't challenge it, and you just start regurgitating it, right? This is
I know.
This is wrong.
That I like to bust. Having said that, though, I tend to go with the 10-40-50 rule.
Okay.
When in terms of how we get our message across, because those words are absolutely critical. How we language something to make sure that the audience understands. And thank you very much for pointing out that if our audience is not understanding, this is new terminology to them, well, it's going to go over their heads. And then no, that I'm not making myself clear. I'm not speaking in a way that my audience can hear, let alone wants to hear. So thank you for pointing that out. So what I'm saying is that in terms of the frequency, there's been some wonderful examples of studies where there was one big hangar set up where it was an aircraft hangar. So you can imagine an enormous building. It was set up with a load of tuning forks at different frequencies. They were tuned to different frequencies, and somebody stood at the edge of the building, pinged off a tuning fork of a particular frequency, and those that were tuned to the same frequency in the building, they could have been yards away, started to vibrate because they were pinging with the same frequency. Now that's from the mechanical, the what do you call it, Newtonian physical side of things. So words also carry energy because of as I said to you earlier, the physical way we make up for the vocal tract. Some sounds like ah and ooh have a bigger sound than it, simply because of the way we create the sound in our vocal tract. I'm sorry, I'm getting very technical here. This is the speech therapist in me. Having said that, because of that, that's the physical frequency. So that's more of, as I said, the Newtonian side of it. Add into it the more quantum stuff and the intention behind it. You're then getting into frequencies of different emotions, and that's another ball game entirely. And there's been a scale of different vibrational levels that go from, I think it's shame or hatred or guilt, or those are the really low frequency ones, way up to love, and all stations in between. Does that clarify? I've kind of given a heck of a lot of information there. Does that make it easier?
You have, and I think the the journey that we're taking right now is perfect, because you've set the stage for this new, relatively new science that we're learning more about, which is the quantum side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, you have different scales of vibration. The highest vibration, the highest state of being is in love.
Mm.
And we've seen, I believe the Japanese scientist was Emoto. Am I pronouncing his name correctly? The one who was speaking to the water.
Nakamura, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, where it was, the water becoming crystallized.
Water, yes. Fabulous. Mm-hmm.
And we tend not to think a lot about that, but I want to pitch this to you, because we know at the cellular level, we are primarily water. Mm-hmm. So if he could make that sort of shift in a water sitting in a jar, in a glass, by either speaking loving words or hateful words, mm-hmm. what is that doing to us, to our bodies?
Oh, exactly. On that front, for if your audience members are not familiar with the studies around this, not only was the speaking the words in the actual containers that they were freezing him in, they had the words attached to the actual containers as the water was being frozen, and the words were things like hatred, love, I think disgust was in there. There was some really, there were strong words, both positive and negative, and the construction of the crystals that was seen then under microscopic pictures were beautifully shaped, beautifully formed, or haphazardly and really quite ugly crystals for the ones that were being experienced to the low vibrations of hatred and disgust and shame and those sorts of words. How that affects us physically in our bodies. There was one example that I mentioned at the summit. I was working with a gentleman who had been told all the way through school that he was broken. He is a gentleman with Asperger's syndrome, sort of high-level autism. And all through school, he'd been given the things that he couldn't do. He'd been reflected on, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And the meaning he attached to that was, I'm broken. So when I started to work with him, he had flipped night into day. He was being a bit of a vampire. His dishes were piling up because he did not have any self-worth or any oomph to look after his flat. His dishes were piled up. The trash had not been taken out. It stank in there. It really did. We worked pretty hard together in terms of flipping that script, because we looked for evidence that he was not broken, but he looked at things differently. And when we gradually amassed evidence for that, he turned life around, and he could see that, no, he wasn't broken. He was a bit of a square peg in a round hole. Things were looked at differently. And when he took on board and challenged his own thinking that no, he wasn't broken, he thought about things differently. Life began to turn around. He finally graduated with a double master's in maths and physics. I mean, this guy's one bright dude. He's now tutoring undergrads, and he's working up a program for how to teach maths to high school students in a fun way. How's that for thinking differently?
That's a beautiful story.
It's so touching, and his mother has come back to me and told me that since we've stopped working together. So that was really precious.
And I'm certain in your professional experience and your coaching, you have many stories like this.
Mm.
And how can we become more aware of what we're saying, especially to ourselves?
Sure. what are the words that habitually come out of your mouth? Those are the ones that we can start with. Now, if we are good enough at taking that observer role and listening into ourselves from time to time, it can be a bit of fun. It can also be a bit of shock. If there's somebody that you can trust to hold up the mirror to you, ask them what are the words that they associate with you. Again, that can be a bit of a challenge. Trust somebody that's not going to beat you up about things. This is a data gathering exercise. And if you can find out the sorts of words that come from your mouth. Now, I'll give you examples because this is all sort of very fairy at the moment. So if you're in the habit of telling people what they should do, okay, that could be one of them. Or I tell you what, and does the finger come out? Because that will also give you a clue. I mean, wagging fingers. That again, there's a reflection there. Would, should, could, the woulda, shoulda, coulda things. Just is another word to watch out for. If you just walked in the room, well, fair enough, that's a time qualifier. But if you're talking about just in a constricting way, I'm just a bookkeeper, as somebody once told me. I'm just a stay-at-home mum. That's the sort of thing I'm getting at. Equally so, on the other hand, it could be brilliant, awesome, wonderful, and championing type words as well. So what are those words that regularly trip off your tongue? Because what comes out of here is a reflection of what's going on in here, in your heart and in your head, where we think. So I wonder if that helps.
Yes, it does, Wendy, and it causes you to I'm pausing for a moment because I'm processing everything that you just said, that the words become a mirror of the soul, right? What's really going on. So we know that most of our life is governed and created subconsciously. But if we look at the tangible evidence that's out there, that the spoken word and how the world is responding to those words, it gives us an indicator of what that subconscious mindset is actually doing and what's brewing in the unconscious kitchen, the subconscious kitchen. And that it can be a little frightening. I remember when I was married, and my husband was verbally abusive, and I remember him always saying, "Well, this is just how we are. Deal with it." But this is, when we hear people say, "Well, I'm from such and such family, and we have tempers, and we have this," and it's like, really, you were created to be this unloving, harsh being. But that was his justification. This is just how we are, and deal with it. And obviously, I had to make my exit years down the road. But I remember how it made me feel, to the point, and I'd like you to speak to this to our audience, because there are a lot of women who are watching this show who may find themselves in situations, whether it's a workplace situation where there's microaggressions, or maybe in a home situation where there are these verbal aggressions that minimize who you are. And I remember, Wendy, losing myself in that. Suddenly finding myself cowering within my own skin, afraid to speak out because I didn't want to be hit with more harsh retaliation. And it took me 2 years after the divorce to come back to who LaWanna really was, to say, I'm now comfortable in the skin. And if you had told me going into this relationship, Wendy, that I would have allowed something like that to change who I was, I would have said, literally impossible. I'm too strong for that. But and I'm going to pause right there because I want to turn it over to your expert advice in speaking to women who may find themselves, being impressed upon by words that are making them feel less than and unworthy and undeserving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a situation that so many of us find ourselves in. The words themselves, as we've said, carry an energy. And one of the ways I suggest to people to put up an energy boundary around this is, do you know what I mean by a zorb? One of those big plastic bubbly ball things that you can get into and roll down hills.
Yes.
I love that as a picture because you can be in the middle of it. You can see what's coming and you can decide what you allow in and what you push away. Now, I'm not saying this is easy by any manner of means. However, if you can exercise that boundary, you can hear the words coming in, but you can choose whether you take those on board or not. That takes that step back, that takes conscious decision. I'm not taking this on. And that's what you say to yourself in amongst the energetic barrage that you're getting. You can say, this is not for me. But I'm saying this with great love and appreciation that this is not simple. Sorry, it's simple, but it's not easy. And it does require that conscious, I'm not going to take this in. Does that help?
No, it's beautiful. Yes, I think it does. And for those of you who are listening and finding yourself in this challenging space, and you're wondering, I create these boundaries? How do I insulate myself? How do I heal so that I can become the amazing expressive being I was intended to? I've put Wendy's information here so that she can help you to identify those trigger words that are minimizing, limiting, restricting you, and how can you change those, the other side of the coin, to words that are more empowering, uplifting, expansive. So please look at Wendy's contact information here below. Join her Facebook community, facebook.com/YWHP events, which stands for Your Words Have Power events. And she also has a free offer, but we'll get to that a little bit later because we're still in the throes of conversation. So, Wendy, I know you were recently on the Celebrate You International Women's Conference, and you wanted to again platform this message about your words have power. I'd like us to take it now to those who want to get out there and they want to speak, they want to present, they have a message to share with the world. Maybe they're authors, maybe they're teachers or coaches or influencers, leaders, but they're not showing up as authentically as they can because they are trying to replicate, emulate someone else. How do you help individuals show up as them in their truth with powerful words that help to influence, uplift, inspire others?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. One of the things that I often do when I start off with a group coaching session is ask the individuals in the group, who is your role model as a speaker? And equally importantly, why? What specifically is it about that speaker that attracts you? We did this interestingly with one group recently where we had Brené Brown, we had Joe Rogan, we had Gary Vaynerchuk, and we had Mother Teresa in that group. Now that's an interesting mix, don't you think? And when I said, okay, why? What is it that attracts you to that speaker? And each one of them said authenticity. I went, okay, isn't that interesting? Because what each of the people in my group had sussed was that each one of those people in a very different vehicle was showing their authenticity. That was the common thread through all. Now, they also had very different styles of presentation. And when we dug into the other elements, the thing that you admire about your role model as a speaker, you only admire it because it's actually in you. And that's what we wanted them to appreciate. Whatever it was that was attracting them to their role model was already in them. So use that quality, but do it in your way, your style. There is only one you. Do you, don't do anyone else. That job's already taken.
I love that. I remember at the conference, Wendy, and I don't know if you were still on at this time, but Dr. Duranche was standing up and she was taking her Q&A. She was in the Q&A session, and an individual said, "Well, how can I be like you?" And she responded in such a loving way. She said, "You can't. I'm an original."
Yeah.
You can't copy it or an original. And she was just trying to impart what you just said. Do you, be you. There's only one you. There will only ever be one you in the entire continuum of time.
Yeah. How exciting is that?
I know. If you could just sit in that to our listening audience. We are here with Wendy Corner from Australia, founder of Your Words Have Power. If you are not listening to what she's saying, go back and listen to the replay, because she's been sprinkling golden nuggets during this conversation. And sometimes we take our words lightly, and we have a few more minutes, but let's talk again about what we say to ourselves, because it can shape and shift our lived experience.
Can I share with you briefly my origin story?
Yes, please.
When I was 2, my earliest memory is of the double doors closing with me on one side and my mother on the other in a hospital situation. Because back in the 60s, parents were not allowed to stay in hospital with their children if they had to be in overnight. So I was screaming for my mother and she could not come to rescue me. And at that point in time, I decided that my voice didn't matter because nobody was coming for me. So that must be the logical conclusion. To a little 2-year-old, that made sense. At the same time, this little 2-year-old made the decision that nobody else should experience that. So though that decision colored a lot of my life choices, a lot of things happened in my childhood where I did not speak up for myself because, well, my voice didn't matter. It led to medical conditions that I hadn't been sharing with other people because my voice didn't matter. Nobody would listen to me anyway, so I wouldn't say anything. The flip side of that was becoming a speech pathologist because I didn't want anybody else to experience their voice didn't matter. This was all subconscious. You're saying about how what we say to ourselves is often buried in life's kitchen. I do love that, percolating in life's kitchen. A beautiful picture. And it wasn't until eons later, it was in my 50s, that I even uncovered that early memory. The things that I've been telling myself that my voice didn't matter. I could advocate on behalf of my clients, but I didn't do it for me because my voice didn't matter. And then when that got flipped, and that's a work in progress, because if you can imagine 50 years of saying the same thing to yourself, those neural pathways are very clearly defined. So back to the guy who was broken, we're flipping the script, we're changing the words that I'm using with myself, and I'm challenging those experiences and looking for evidence and providing myself with evidence that my voice does matter. That's the art of flipping the script, becoming conscious of what you are saying to yourself and going, what can I say instead? What's going to be more helpful, more resourceful, and take me further forward? The expansion that you were talking about earlier on. that's where I'm at, and that's what I'm passionate about.
Thank you for sharing that. And it reminds us that there are so many lived experiences that if it's traumatic for us as children, and even as adults, now we call it PTSD, but we always say children are so resilient. But children are created to where their survivalistic mode represses. And it's amazing that with the story you shared, how it literally shaped your professional journey and how today you're still influencing, showing up in the world, screaming, your words have power, yet you felt powerless in your own expression.
Yes. Yeah. It's
wow.
Yeah, it is quite phenomenal. As I said, it took a bit of digging into, and I have a lovely phrase that I often use, which is, it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. And
yes.
that required a little bit of outside help to let me see that was my internal script. And then there was the question, well, is that working for you now? No. Right. What are we going to do about it? So that's why I'm saying that the offer is there for a conversation with anybody who's interested to do this, to look at what could be going on in the underneath the percolating kitchen of your subconscious. What are those words that could be under there, just happily brewing away and impacting your day-to-day adult experience of life? That's from way back when you were not very big.
I love that. So they can contact you at www.wendycorner.as.me/summit to schedule time with you. And if you could take a few minutes to walk us through what this is and what can they expect, and more importantly, do you work with clients all over the world?
Oh, I do. Yes, absolutely. This morning, just to put you in the picture, we were saying right at the start that we have a time difference. I am presently 12 hours ahead of you guys. So when this goes to air, it'll be 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Woohoo! Thank you that this is pre-recorded. Because of the 12-hour difference, I was on a call with Canada at 8 a.m. this morning, my time. So I work top and tail of the day with my North American clients. New Zealand come in there as well. I have UK clients. Yes, I have a global audience, and we have a global client group. So yes, it is easily to that. What the call is about is looking at, I run a couple of exercises. I'll ask you to think about the words that you use regularly ahead of the meeting, so that you've got a couple of them already prepared, words that you know are part of your vocabulary. And the other thing we'll look at is what I call, or what is known as the 7 levels deep exercise, which I gained from Dean Graziosi, looking at what's important to you and digging into why right the way down. And that often uncovers a lot of the stuff in the kitchen.
Yeah, I love Dean Graciosi's exercise, because what you think is the issue or is the root cause, it never is.
Yes.
You just keep peeling that onion and keep peeling and keep peeling, and you're like, wow.
That's exactly what I did on the group on the call this morning. We started off with the idea that this lady wanted to put some structure in her life, and we ended up having a conversation about how she and her husband are going to sit down and talk about having a date night and what that could look like. Okay, how did we get there? We were looking at what's important in life and the structure and who is the most important, the big rocks that go in first, and that's where we ended up. So we did not go with the structure, we went to the deeper level. So yes, that's a very helpful exercise, and one that I will guide those who are not familiar with it through, and also looking at those words that we can then flip round, even if it's just one word that you consciously focus on to switch to a different word. and do a bit of test and measure, experiment with it. Does life feel better for changing that word?
I would like you to do this demonstration for our viewing audience. We are here with Wendy Corner, the CEO and founder of Your Words Have Power, at the Celebrate You Women International Conference. You started off your presentation by demonstrating two ways of saying something to an individual. One was harsh and one was done in a loving way. And I am asking for this demonstration because to those that are listening, those internal dialogues are happening, whether we're aware of it or not. So are we speaking love to ourselves, or are we beating ourselves up with this harsh conversation, internal conversation?
Absolutely. What I started the summit conference talk with was, why do you always say things like that? You always listen to me. You never listen to me. Why do you do that? And there's that real beating energy. Now that can be done externally in the heat of an argument. But oh boy, can that be done internally, can't it? Why do you always do that? Why does this always happen to me? That sort of unresourceful question and the energy of beating yourself up. You know, you've got 10 things on your list to do that day. You've done 9 of them, but you can guarantee you'll remember and beat yourself up about the one that you didn't do. Alternatively, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. That sort of loving response. And again, that can be done externally. It can also be done internally. So we all know that we mess up. Yes, we can do the, or we can go, oh, well, didn't quite go according to plan, did it? But let's see how we can do things differently next time, hey? What can we learn from this? So we're acknowledging what happened. And the meaning we're then giving it is not that I'm a failure. That one didn't quite go according to plan. What can we do differently next time? That's a far more loving energy attached to that. Doesn't matter if it's the same situation or not. You can go with the hurtful stuff. You can go with the resourceful stuff. I know which one I'd rather do.
Yes. I love that. Wendy, we are actually a little over time, but I felt this conversation is so important. And if you have a few more moments, I want to talk about another part of what you offer. And I just think for those that are listening, Wendy may be a resource for you. And I want to speak directly to individuals who are taking the stage and or the mic, looking to have a platform to further the reach with your message. And one of the things that you do is you help to coach TEDx style talks, speeches. Would you care to take a few minutes to speak to those who are saying, how can I become a TEDx speaker? Or how can I just become a more empowered and influential speaker on stage?
Absolutely. Well, we have a platform once a month called Your Words Have Power. We're keeping the theme going, you get that. And we give speakers the opportunity for a 10-minute talk, no slides, so there's no tech that can go wrong. It's you and the international audience. And the audience we call speaker champions because they give you feedback. The audience are made up of speakers, aspiring speakers. They could be authors, they could be podcasters, they could be book coaches, people who are interested in what you have to say. It's a safe space to try out your speaking stuff. It may be that you're an experienced speaker and you've got new material to try, but it's a 10-minute window. And it is a very strict 10 minutes because we're modeling good timekeeping, because it's unlikely you're going to be on a platform just for you. There are going to be other people there as well. So to respect other people's time, and also the event manager, because you want to get booked again, you want to keep to your time. So that's where the parameters are. We work with you to get your bio together. We do some promotion for you. We also run extra to this, the opportunity of doing a workshop on the structure called format, so that you can have your presentation flow, bring everybody on board, keep everybody on board, crafting, delivering your message to the call to action, which everyone goes, well, of course, yes. How do I find out more about it? And that's a part and parcel of what we're up to. We do it for 10 minutes because it's then almost TEDx length. The TEDx that I was at today, we had a number of the speakers were around the 9-10 minute mark, and a few went over to 14 minutes. It's that sort of time slot that if TEDx is your goal, that's where you're going for. It's a bit of a warm up for you.
I love that. Thank you so much. For those of you that want to contact Wendy, again, her contact information is here below. Join her Facebook community at facebook.com/YWHP events, which stands for Your Words Have Power events. She has an amazing free offer for you at wendycorner.as.me/summit. And this is where you and Wendy will have that conversation to assess what words are you using most frequently and how can you shift them in a way that creates more positive impact, influence that you want to see in your life. Your words truly do have power, and her business is so appropriately titled. And I love hearing the story. I mean, we're at points in our lives, and if we take the time to look back, and sometimes with the help of someone else, are able to do that deep dive, we can understand why our why even exists.
Yes. Yeah.
And for those of you who are speakers, teachers, leaders, influencers that want to show up on stage in a bolder, more authentic type of way, where you have influence and impact and indelible impression in your life, in your business, and around the world, please reach out to Wendy. I'm also going to put this here, and it's a shameless plug for me as well. Wendy spoke at the Celebrate You International Women's Conference. And you know what? You can still get the replay. So you can go to bit.ly/CelebrateYou2022. C is capitalized, the Y is capitalized. It's Celebrate You 2022. If you like what you heard here, you want to learn more about Wendy, look at her own personal style and her strength in being able to help you shape your words, establish your stage presence, your mic presence. I think you're going to enjoy her talk, as well as the talk of other amazing presenters who were at the summit. So go there.
Not least of which was LaWanna's story, which was incredibly powerful. So please do go back and watch it, because I sat there in absolute awe. Please go back and watch that one, if no other. It was phenomenal.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you. Thank you. And I am just so grateful that our paths crossed. And I look forward to doing many, many more things with you and introducing you on this side of the world to as many people who I know can benefit from your services, both individually, professionally, and then again, those of us that want to show up on stage. We weren't born knowing how to show up and speak. I mean, there's some who are charismatic in that way, but most of us need a little coaching, a little shaping, a little polishing, and that's what Wendy brings to us. So it's all good.
Fun, 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 fun.
See, when it is dark and even the brightest flashlight cannot illuminate your way, you have to have clarity of thought. You have to be able to see and recommit to the vision that you had for yourself. The second, in reframing, and this is so important. If you get this, I promise you will master your life. See, we are divine beings. We have creative genius in us. And when we reframe, when we're designing the lane that we're in, did you hear me? We design the lane that we're in. No one else occupies that lane but us. It is our lane. We need to show up. We need to be bold. We need to own it and not look to our left and to our right to things that may be so easily distracting for us. And secondly, in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Thank you. Wendy, what are the last words you'd like to leave with our audience before we sign off?
We often think of public speaking as being out there and scary. It's known as the single most scary thing in the hierarchy, even more than death. And that's because, from an evolutionary perspective, if you were to stand out of the tribe, then you could get pushed out of the tribe and you would literally be on your own and die. So that's why it's scarier than death. Put it in perspective. You are speaking every day of your life. You know, public speaking is not just to an auditorium of N,000. You're speaking every day, whether it's to those in your family, in your job, in your work, in your community, or even if it's just to the person that you're talking to, like you are always speaking. So take the thought of public speaking out of it. Go with the speaking. It's important. And yes, it's a skill worth mastering. I think it was Warren Buffett who said it's probably going to be the most important skill you will ever learn, because it will exponentially change your business. And boy, will it change your life.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Wendy, for joining us on Choose the Challenge. We'll definitely have to have you back for a more deeper dive conversation, and maybe you'd be willing to actually take us through a mini training exercise so people can again get to know more of who you are and what you offer and how they can connect with you. This has been amazing. I know we were going to be on a shorter period of time, but I thought this is too rich to cut it off, and I own the show, so and we're recording, so I'm not tied to the live timing. So it's all wonderful, and things work out the way they're supposed to. This was amazing, better than I even expected. I love your energy. I love the resource and the talent that you bring to the world. And again, I'm just so grateful and blessed that our paths intersected.
Me too. Thank you so much, LaWanna. It's been a joy. Thank you.
Thank you. And to our listening audience, please continue to follow us on E360 TV, as well as follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, all things social media. I'm easy to find. And here's Wendy's information. Please, please, please reach out to Wendy and find out that your words truly do have power. And I just want to remind all of you that in life and in business, let me remove these banners for a moment. In life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. We will see you next week on another edition of Choose to Challenge. Bye, everyone. Bye, Wendy.
Bye-bye. Thank you.